to the current episode of Agencyphonics. I can't remember how many episodes we're in now. I'm losing count. We're episode 4, I'm being told. Thank you.
Lucky.
So just a reminder for those of you who haven't seen other episodes, Peter Hall and myself, we wrote a book called Agencynomics, and our editor said to us that we weren't allowed to talk about too much. We should talk about one thing in lots of detail, but we kind of rebelled and we covered lots of different subjects. But even then, we realised that we'd actually missed off quite a lot, and there was so much more detail and topics we wanted to sort of delve into more. So we created Agencyphonics as a way to bring in some guests and talk about particular subjects, get a little bit more detailed around those. And I just want to say before we start today, another thank you to Wirehive. Agencynomics and Agencyphonics is run as a social enterprise. It's a not-for-profit. And so Wirehive kindly donate their studio for us to use. So big thanks to them. And Simon from Wirehive today is our producer, who's kindly in the background editing everything for us and making sure that it all works well. So today I am going to introduce my 2 latest guests. We have Fee and Katie from Skin+Blister. And I must have been the only person in the world that didn't realise that Skin+Blister was rhyming slam for sister when I first met them. So there's no real, not really many clues there to know that they are both sisters. Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the reason why I suppose really you guys are here is because Katie got quite angry with me. So we run these, so we organise these walk and talk. So rather than having, drunken networking events in the evening, we get out in the countryside, and we went on this fabulous long walk on the Hangers Way in Hampshire. Yeah. And Katie came up to me and she said, and right on cue, topic for the book really, hey, in your book you talk about having offices in towns, but actually, we have a different business model, and we don't have offices. So and you didn't really cover that very well. And I sort of wimped out and said, well, actually, we did talk about, there were new models coming out, and we talked in particular about an agency called Up There Everywhere. We just had Tamara on. Mm-hmm. And actually, funnily enough, I had always thought that Tamara had a different type of business, weirdly. I watched the episode to understand what I meant, but I didn't think she was maybe the classic kind of agile distributed agency because of her services, but she absolutely is, and absolutely was a pioneer, really, in many ways of that business. Yeah. So I want to just start by, we're going to talk more about that in more detail, okay. But I wanted to go back to the very beginning, because I'm always curious to understand how you started. When did the business start? Mm-hmm. Where did you start it from? And what was the what's the story?
Okay. Do you want me to start? You start.
Go for it, Fee.
Well, we have known each other for 39 years.
Wow. Believe
it or not. And Katie came along into my life, and I was quite annoyed about it, to be fair. So we didn't get off to the best start in life. But both of us grew up around medicine. So both of our parents are GPs, so family doctors. We grew up in surgery, always surrounded by patients. There was a dispensary there, so we used to help with all the drugs and medication. Yeah. And just grew up in a world surrounded by healthcare. And we both loved it. And actually, I wanted to be a doctor. That was my dream. And Katie was like, no way. I don't want to do anything related to medicine. So I was sort of the compliant eldest, and Katie was the rebel. Yeah. But I think in terms of our careers, what we did is we went into science. So we both did science degrees. Yeah. And then we both didn't want to work in a lab. We wanted to be creative, and somehow found our way into healthcare communications. And really, Skin+Blister was born from a point of shared frustration. So we were just working at all of these agencies.
So you were working in agencies?
We were working at other agencies, yeah. And we were just getting a bit annoyed by people churning things out, not necessarily thinking about who that end person is that you're speaking to.
So were they big agencies?
Big and small, a real variety. Right. We talked about it for years, haven't we, in terms of trying to do it together.
What roles did you do in the agency?
So I started in the client partnership side, really. So it's like an account exec, and worked my way up. To sort of senior account director level. I actually worked for Jenny Plant, who's been on one of your podcasts, so a publicist.
Right.
So Jenny
is like a
mentor.
No, I'm joking, it's all right.
So amazingly not. And then Katie, you were the creative side, weren't you?
Yeah. But then we both went freelance as well. So we were quite strategic, and Fee lives out in the kind of home counties. So Fee went to a lot of the agencies out there, and then I went to freelance at a lot of healthcare communication companies in London. So overall, we got this really good idea of what a lot of our competitors are doing. It's out now. I've just said what we did.
Yeah. But you were doing design work.
No, so I was a copywriter.
Copywriter,
Yes.
okay.
So so doing the creative, always for healthcare communications, both of us. So we just kind of stayed in that industry, and it's all we know and all we love, really. Health. It comes from our parents, both being doctors, and it's very much part of who we are, both of us. And we both love it. And I think like Fee said, we see materials that make us angry sometimes, and it's often for quite heavy illnesses. So someone gets diagnosed with cancer or dementia, and there's often a lot of confusion around the diagnosis times. The patients don't really know where they're going, the carers themselves. And alongside that, there's a lot of new medicines coming through for healthcare professionals. And we really feel that, if we have science degrees and we're reading information for patients in the UK, we shouldn't be having to look up words. That's completely not right. And it was this kind of anger that drove us. And we still see it all the time now. It's we have this vision of this world full of, remarkable healthcare communications. And we think our vision will outlive Skin and Blister maybe 100 years over. It's just so much bigger than we can ever do it. And it's you see it throughout the world, just terrible. Happy people with cancer on beaches, or they don't live. Yeah,
that's always a good one.
And lots of jigsaws.
We were just talking about a lack of empathy in the podcast this morning, and it's empathy and sympathy, and just having that pervasively through your business. But so, how many years were you working then for? Working, I'm going to call it in practice, but working in agencies. How long did you have to?
Probably about 10 years.
10 years.
10 plus years.
Okay. And then you got to this point where you're like, right, we're now going to do this for ourselves.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
So we've been going 3 years.
3 years ago. So how was that decision, and how did you?
I think for me there was a real turning point. So actually our dad got diagnosed with cancer, and it was quite a kind of scary moment. And I think Fee and I kind of sat down, and I said to Fee, I remember saying, we'd kind of started and then stopped because of Fee having some children along the way. Children get in the way of everything. And so, and we've been talking about it to our friends for so many years. People I'd met, and they said to me, God, the first thing you ever said to me was, I want my own agency. And that was maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Wow. And I remember, this kind of life-changing thing happened to us, and Fee happened to be on maternity leave at the time. And I remember going to sit to her and I said, Fee, are we ever going to do this? Sometimes when something big in life happens, it makes you realise that time is really short.
Yes.
And I said, our friends are bored to tears of hearing that this is what we want to do with our lives. Are we ever going to do this? Are we ever going to give it a go? And I think we kind of decided from that point that we would, and it kind of started off working in the evenings a lot. Fee had a young child, several young children. So it kind of started very, very slowly, and doing our branding, trying to work out what our mission was. We did that.
So were you doing
slowly.
this while you were working in the background, trying to, part-time, trying to find out a way to,
just trying to find our way through.
And how long did it take you to get to the point where you both quit and your jobs and started, just from that moment?
I think that was probably a year.
Do you think did you procrastinate a lot,
Not
or
really.
or was it just part of getting everything, all the ducks lined up before you went?
We had a lot of challenging conversations around our mission. So our mission is to put the care back into healthcare communications. But to start off with, we were trying to work out who we were. And actually looking back on it now, it was so important to spend that time to get that right and really work out what we stood for, what was our dreams, what's our aspirations for the vision is, being remarkable. How do we get to that point? So we had a lot of conversations about that. Well, essentially doing your own strategy and your own branding for yourself, which, as you know, is often a thing you put last. Yeah. But we try to put it first.
And did one of you start first and then the other came? Was there a gap between you, or did you have day one of the business? You were both there.
There was a day. Oh God, there was a day. So
there was a day.
Well, so I think because my dad was ill, so we were kind of going to hospital and stuff, and that allowed me to come to Maidenhead a bit more. So we kind of had at least almost a day together a week, and just in our mum's kitchen table, literally. But there was a day, and I went to Glastonbury actually, and on the Wednesday, that was the last day I worked for my freelance job, and the idea was that on the Monday I would come back and Skin & Blister would begin.
Yeah.
And on the Friday they announced the Brexit result, which is kind of weird because you're in Glastonbury and, you know, it's a very like love everybody kind of, you know, environment, and suddenly people are talking about the fact that we're going to leave the EU. And I remember texting Fee and saying, you know, this is the worst possible time to set up a business. And
well, the best possible time.
Fee's response was, you know, there's no good time, you know, we're kind of doing this. So I remember coming back from Glastonbury and being quite terrified at that point, and we just went for it, didn't we?
Yeah,
I think.
And we had not one single client.
It was awful.
Did you have money, which is, you know, which is a bit unusual, because normally when you've had 10 years in a business, often the people I meet, they manage to sort of have one client. Obviously, a lot of the time, you know, there's quite difficult contracts and maybe, but sometimes it's with permission, you know, they can take a client with them and it's agreed. But so you had no clients. Did you have did you have a burning bridge or an amount of money to survive off, or
a tiny bridge?
So
when you said bridge, like a rung of a bridge.
Like you had a month's worth of money and you had to make some. Did you have a deadline? Did you set yourself any deadlines or not?
We set ourselves milestones, didn't we? What we wanted to try and achieve.
Okay.
But then, of course, fate can take over. But we did cycle our own money into the business, so it was almost like we can pay ourselves this month, but actually all we'd done is we'd put money from our savings in to be able to pay ourselves back. It was just purely psychological. Yeah. But we really invested in Claire, who's our head of art. You know, we wanted her to be able to build our brand, everything promotional that we could do. So we really invested in the people that we needed rather than ourselves. Yeah. So for a good 6-8 months, we didn't pay ourselves, and it was getting pretty critical. Yeah.
Did you think about doing part-time jobs and other work?
We both did bits of freelance because Fee. So I think one of the reasons we didn't have a client was because Fee then learned how to be a healthcare copywriter, which is a very, very sought-out role. Very under-resourced across the whole industry. And I think it's one of the reasons we found it so hard, you know, because you're going from an environment where you're kind of constantly, you know, wanted and employed, and we were both quite lucrative in our freelance careers, and then trying to just bring it into our own world. So we did bits on the side to kind of help, but you reach the point where you don't want to be doing this for another agency, you want to do it for yourself, you know, so you're kind of giving your expertise to your competitors. Yeah. And it was a very scary moment.
So did you find in the early days that your customers were other agencies?
Yeah, to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So it's quite common that. But did they let you own the client, or did they own the client?
No, it was always.
So you couldn't own the relationship.
No. So it got to the point where we're like, we've got to stop this, and we've got to focus on getting our own clients. And Katie had luckily managed to bump into somebody who's head of procurement at a big pharma company, and he was really into inclusion and diversity, and he was really interested in us, and we're part of We Connect, who Tamara is as well, and it's a women's enterprise network, so we met him through there. And
so that's called We Connect.
We Connect, and it's brilliant for female-owned or women-owned businesses.
In
global network.
In healthcare?
No, in all industries.
Never heard of it. It sounds fantastic.
It's brilliant. They had a conference this week. It's actually how we met Tamara. So she did a talk at We Connect 3 years ago, and we'd been having all these conversations about how we were going to work, and it's thanks to Tamara we went, yes, this is going to subject the way we want to do it.
Fantastic. And I've just been talking to her in this morning's podcast on the subject of because I've known her for 10 years, and what I admire about her the most is we were talking about this kind of introvert, extrovert, ambivert, she called it, and it's very easy for, if you are, let's say, a copywriter or you are an accountant, so it's maybe not necessarily as outward as maybe some extrovert owners are, and not as inward as maybe some more mechanical roles. And she's done a fantastic job of going out and networking and speaking and putting herself out there, even though it's out of her comfort zone. Yeah. And over time working on that. And I think I get a lot of stick sometimes sort of externally, because it's very easy for you to say, you've got to go out and you've got to meet 50 new people each month, and you've got to learn to speak, and you've got to build your personal brand up, because not everyone's like you, Spencer. But I understand that. It's difficult. It was actually, I get nervous doing this. It's difficult. I don't find it easy. I don't. I think people think I think it's really easy. I'm terrible at introducing. Like when I network, I can't break the ice. Like if I get to live with someone, it goes like once I start talking, I don't shut up. That's the thing you learn about me. But the thing is, so you've got out there and you've gone to this network event, which I think is fantastic, and then you've met an incredibly good connection who's given you some inspiration around where to go. Did that then help you with your visions? My question.
Well, I mean, I got angry at him.
It's a theme, isn't it?
Sorry, Spencer. Basically, we're very passionate. Passionate's one of our values, actually. He stood up, and as part of it was actually in the pharmaceutical environment, the event was, and it was all about diversity and inclusion, and they didn't have one female speaker stand up. And I went over to him at the end. He wasn't the only one I said it to, but I definitely said it to him. I said, how can you run an event that doesn't include one female speaker if you're talking about diversity?
It's ridiculous.
And I think they just hadn't thought about it. And, the person that ran the event said women don't tend to put themselves forwards for these things. I mean, this was three and a half years ago. And I said, well, if you're looking for a women-owned healthcare communications company, we'd love to speak to you further. And that was literally the kind of the foot into the door, and then the fact that we were part of We Connect, because I think there aren't many other agencies. I think there's only 2 or 3 that are female owned.
I think there's more now, but at the time
it's
quite rare.
Yeah, so it's kind of
in that particular group
in our industry,
in
your industry.
Healthcare,
I thought it was
very male dominated.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was
On the PR
around.
side, it's much more.
And Med-Ed, I think, Medcoms.
Yeah.
But from the
creative
advertising side,
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny, every time I've ever met anyone in, I said this with Tamara, is obviously you do see certain, like, for example, in PR, often there's a lot of all-female teams in PR, and in healthcare, just the ones that I think, if I look at my network, I think 80% of the owners are female owners.
Yeah.
I obviously don't know enough of these male owners, but obviously I accept the fact normally in digital in the world I sort of came from is terrible, but mainly because I just think there's a whole level of complexity of problems around there, but that's really probably the big area needs changing. I think general advertising. So so what happened next then? So you got the speaking slot?
No. So we got the opportunity to pitch. We got called a few weeks later and invited by procurement.
And it could not have come at a better time.
Yeah.
On the Monday, this is the famous week, Katie hates when I tell the story. But on the Monday we had the conversation, look, this is not going to work. We're going to have to think about going back to freelance life. The pitch was on the Tuesday. We went in, we were up against some big network agencies. We thought we had no chance. So we just went in there and gave it our all. And I think we were a whirlwind. And at the end, they were like, whew. And then we walked out and we thought we had no chance, but at least we go out on a high. And then on the Thursday, they phoned to say, we'd love to give you the business. And I was like, what?
That's a great story.
That's how Skin+Blister was born. And they have been such advocates for us. And it's by no means a guarantee of getting any business, but it's just sometimes an introduction. And as you know, and then as you meet people and then they refer you to others through the great work you've done, it's thanks to them that we're really still here.
Yeah.
So they're brilliant.
So you've now got your first client, and if you had more examples of that, by the way, where you feel like you've been taken to the brink, and then something good has happened last minute, because I find that always happens to me in my life, but business life. But
I always think things happen for a reason. So when we first started, actually, within the first couple of months, we got on a pitch list, and we went over to Dublin, and we did this pitch, and again up against some really big agencies, and we won it, which was fantastic. But then the client left, and the lady that replaced her did not believe in what they tried to do. So we'd got to that point of winning business, and then we lost it, and it's like, and it really felt so tough. But if that hadn't have happened, we wouldn't have got the big pharma win that we ended up doing, which is why we're still here. So I'm just a firm believer in, you have really awful moments. It's a roller coaster, isn't it? Really awful lows, amazing highs, and you've just got to try and ride it. Just keep going. We've got a Dory book, which it's
Tell me about the Dory book.
Very high tech.
Did you bring it?
No, I should have brought it, shouldn't I? I'll send you a photo. But it's a really grown up, literally a Dory notebook that I saw one day when we were having a bit of a bad day, and I bought it, and I was like, right, because for every negative you need 5 positives to get you back to that same feeling that you had before the negative thing happened. So I thought, right, we're going to start capturing the positives, and we're now building up this book. of all the positive quotes that we've had from people over the years, and it's our Just Keep Swimming book. So on those bad moments and those bad days, you pick up this book and you're like, just keep going. So that's the Dory book.
That's fantastic. And it's so important, when you leave. I mean, because in agencies, the whole day is full of challenges. In business, it's not just agency. In business, every day there's a series of challenges, and you're trying to, overcome them. And sometimes it's just one thing that day that happens well, right? And so that one thing can go in the Dory book. I mean, but also it can make or break your evening and your relationships, because if you go home and you pour out the 20 things that went wrong, you want to go home and say the one thing that went right, and make and when you look back at the end of the month and you see all the things that have gone right. So that's a great, and you've used that like for 3 years almost.
We're going to need another Dory soon.
You could probably like release that as some kind of like self-help book on the marketplace.
You've already written the book. Yeah. Great.
It's like
it's our goal for next year.
Do you know 5-minute journal?
Yes.
So 5-minute journal. So you say something, you have affirmations in it. It's a fantastic book. It's a journaling book, but it's almost like you could create your own version of that. It's great for agency therapy.
Let's do it.
I hope you sell it.
Agency therapy, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Need to be a big one.
There's definitely a boom market. So you're at the beginning of the journey. Now, did you have an office? Now, this is I'm going to hit a nerve when I say that button. Did you have an office? But did you have a kitchen table? Did you have?
Yeah, did. So we had our mum's kitchen table.
The mothership.
Mothership. Yeah.
And then, so what would you? That was where you would meet and convene when you weren't
with a tiny
remotely.
baby as well.
My little daughter, who's
2 women
now
and the
4,
baby.
and she was the boss baby, so she'd often be there at the table with us, giving good advice and feedback. So we just started, and actually, I think that's been the only really heated discussion we've had.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we need? Because at the time, a lot of our colleagues in the industry have these big, lovely offices, and they are fantastic. But realistically, when I've got 3 small children, I wasn't going to be able to get to Shepherd's Bush every day. Katie wasn't going to be able to necessarily come out to Maidenhead every day. So we couldn't physically be in the same place every day. And also, Claire, our head of art, lives in Bristol. So just from a necessity point of view, we started up and we're like, right, well, let's just make it work. And so we started it off as flexible working, but now we describe it as deadline-driven working. So it's all about making sure we hit our deadlines for our clients, we deliver, but essentially we want to make sure that people can fit work around their life and not the other way around.
Nice.
And so we have a really loyal team of 13 core members now, and we all work in this way. So we're based from York down to Devon. And we also have a couple of people in Australia and New Zealand as well, and trying to spread out around the world. But we just try and use all the technologies that we can to make sure that we keep communicating. But it's all on a flexible way. So we've got some night owls, and then we've got some morning larks, and then we've got people that do things around the school run. And
that's one of the great things about your model and this new model that's really, I mean, do you call it an agile model? Because I call it distributed model. I don't know why, because I can't see it as this kind of distribution, but actually, do you have a name for it?
We call it agile.
Yeah,
agile.
You call it agile.
It's funny you say that. I don't feel we're distributed.
No.
It's really strange the way we communicate. It feels like we're all
Well,
together
in the
all the
way
time.
that you're distributed and you all come together to solve a problem. Because the thing for me, agile is I think of agile because a bit coming from an agency background where we did design and build, I see it as a methodology for delivering projects. So I see a way of agile, managing your workforce in an agile way, but it's, I don't know. So by the way, is there actually an official term for this?
I think it's,
Have you seen
flexible, agile, depends. It's lots of, I see it like the starlings. The starlings when they move in nature.
Yeah.
That's, to me, is in my head, that's what
I was watching videos on that the other day.
That's
amazing.
That's Skin+Blister.
Yeah, it's
We're
really
all
strange
together.
when we have 3D days, as we call them, or like when you have a meeting. So some of our team members, we've employed them before we've actually physically been in a room with them, and we've worked with them for a few months before we're actually all together. Yeah. And then when we see each other, we're like, it's 3D Joe or whatever, and it's just so nice.
Kind of wanting to touch them, but knowing you can't because of HR.
In an appropriate way.
So when you onboard people, is your interview process different to like if to a normal? You obviously worked in other companies, so you know what it's like. But how's the interview process different?
I think we're really upfront with how we work, and with the questions that we ask are very much. I think just it's because how we work isn't for everybody, and a lot of creative friends I have, particularly from the industry, they like being in an office. They can't see the value of not being in an office. And, you know, equally, there are lots of people that don't have kids that might not want to work with loads of parents that are kind of, you know, because there are, you know, people want to work in advertising and kind of have this lifestyle as well. So I think it really is about asking, you know, the important questions, just as we do with our clients, you know, just trying to kind of really get under the skin of what's that person's situation, you know, when do you work best? You know, like, I know I'm terrible in the afternoons. So if it was my choice, I wouldn't work between 2 and 4. And I don't unless we have a deadline. But I love working in the evening. I love it. Like, can work all night without stopping. And it's kind of trying to say, you know, it's okay, you can be honest, you know, let's try and figure out your best times of working and what other commitments you have. And, you know, and then obviously it's like, do you love healthcare communications? Because if you don't align with our mission and our values, then you can't work with us. And that's quite a tough one, I think.
You've got to really care about it. That's, I mean, our mission is the thing that drives everything. So you've got to care about it as much as everybody else does within the team. And if you do, we've got really high standards. But we don't apologise for it. No. You know, we want to be remarkable. So we need a remarkable team. But we do try to lead with honesty and just be really open about, you know, when we are there, when we're available, when we're not. And I think that's what everybody does. Yeah. And as long as you deliver, we'll trust you to do it in whichever manner you want to do it in. And also what we found is some people, especially creatives, like to go to different spaces to be inspired or work best in different areas. So for us having an office, again, it just wouldn't meet that criteria for us either.
And what about your clients? Because obviously they all have offices. So do you, when you have to do some kind of team meeting, do you just use their offices or do you then hire spaces for them to come to? Because sometimes part of the agency experience is the clients want to get out of there. You know, I've got one particular client who calls their office Colditz. It's so terrible. And they love going to the agency because it's a way to escape and they can work from there. And so do you have any challenges around that? I know, no, does it, what demands do they have?
I think we are really flexible in that approach as well. We do hire meeting spaces. We do go to our clients' offices.
The thing is, with healthcare, we have to be confidential. So often that means that you have to be behind closed doors. You can't necessarily meet in a cafe and chat with your client openly about everything because you can't be in any way advertising to the public. So even if somebody overhears something. So we tend to be like hiring an office, don't we? Yeah. Or going to them. It kind of depends what we're trying to achieve as well. So if you want to create a space where they haven't been before, it can inspire them and it's really good for kind of thinking up new ideas. But equally, sometimes they're so busy, just going to them is fine for them as well.
And tell me about the technology. Like, I something I'm really fascinated about. Because for me, I think one of the key things around your model is actually having the tools and the technology to be able to, and the processes to be able to, I guess, to demonstrate that you have a way of collaborating really effectively as if you're all in the room. Yeah. What do you use? I bet it's not that complicated. But
we gifts and emojis.
Gifts and emojis.
Yeah, you can really tell how everyone's doing, especially on a night before a pitch.
But are you using a certain product?
So Slack, we use
Slack. Okay.
And we use G Suite, which is really
hang out all the time. But we do encourage
Google Hangout then, or
do you use
Google
Hangouts?
Yeah, okay. Not Zoom or.
We have used Zoom as well, but since we went to G Suite, we just put everything over across. But we do have a weekly meeting.
G Suite is great for that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's been fantastic, and actually a lot of our clients use G Suite as well. So it really complements them.
Because I thought they'd be quite, Microsoft sort of, friendly.
No, they're G Suite lovers.
Yeah, wow.
Or the ones that our clients are, aren't they? Yeah. Which is great because then it's really easy to work together as well and share files and things. So I can see, first of all, just some observations. Number one, I love the larks and the owls thing. I mean, I think I've recognised that more recently for me because I used to be an owl. And now I'm a real lark. In the last 2-3 years, I get to bed 9 o'clock and I can get up at 5. I've gone, and I'm only really. Your point about when you work best, Katie. For me, if I had to code my day almost, it's like if I had 2 hours in the morning, I can do so much more work than if I'm trying to do it in the evening. Now it's funny how that. Yeah. So I think when you're recruiting and you have a flexible approach like you do, it's fantastic because. And a lot of offices now, agencies, they have flexible working. They can still do those things, I guess, to a certain degree. But
Well, they can still work from home. There's a huge amount of that flexibility now in the work in most offices now. Not all, but a lot of them. But I think the ability for you to be able to take on people who generally have more fundamental problems around, maybe disability or maybe accessibility or something. I think all those things and diversity, you can solve so many things through your approach. So it is fantastic. Do you think that you would ever? And I think in the book, when I talked about geographies, I think one of the things I was mainly trying to say was that, and it's different in your industry a little bit, but most in the UK, and obviously a lot of listeners to this show may be from all around the world, but sometimes the central capital cities tend to have a concentration of organisations and businesses, and sometimes being close to them is an advantage. In your sector, I believe it's pretty much everyone's kind of Hertfordshire up to Cambridge, aren't they, around there? There's a lot of them, and London as well.
London,
and I guess as long as you've got that area is accessible, it's not a problem if you had to go and see a client. So you probably have some flexibility around that as well.
But I think it's part of the power though, because I think one of the reasons that I always sound like I come off really badly when we have the location chat, because Fee's got 3 kids and they're my family. So that's always been really, in terms of business partners, we cross over. But actually, my biggest need for not wanting to leave London was that's where the creative talent is, and that's what you want to tap into. It's really hard to get people to come and work in Maidenhead or to commute out. It's really hard to get people to come to West London from East London. It's like, a tube ride away. So actually, I think that works really well for our business because we've kind of got, like Fee said as well, we've got a small team in Bristol. It's kind of, we've got people in the hubs, so we're still connected. And you come to London quite a lot, it's not that far away. So
it's nice to mix it up,
isn't
it? So,
but that's where the talent is. The talent's in the cities.
Yeah. Okay.
So
and so your vision when you started, where did you, like when you heard Tamara speak as well, and did you when you first started have this vision of how big or I know
we did. I think you did more than me.
So? I'm not sure.
He was always like 25, and I was like,
you see, you had a number of 25.
I don't know where that came from.
I don't know.
You don't remember how to say
I must have just been trying to be brave.
Yeah. Do you have a number now? Do you have it in your head? Do you sort of see tomorrow has 350 people? Do you think is there too big for you? Or?
I think it's about growing in the appropriate way, and that's our goal for 2020 is to really start to plan that out better because of our mission. So we want to be able to put the care into everything. So, but that includes our team as well, and so it's really important that when we grow, we are doing it in the right way that doesn't affect people's mental health, but that we're still growing the business, making it profitable, and just trying to make the world of healthcare communication stronger.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've got a magic number in our mind. I think we just want to see where we're going to go.
Yeah.
But the only way is up.
Yes, okay. And you've got people in Australia, did you say? So
I think more kind of worldwide. Like I think, yes, I'd love to have a New York office.
I know you would.
I mean, I'm the traveller.
You haven't mentioned that before.
Which is the other problem. This is the other reason we're so agile. I went to China and busted through the Chinese firewall and skin and blister from there for a couple of weeks.
Amazing.
And, I think when you can do that, you really realise that you can. The sky's the limit, really. You can work from anywhere in the world as long as your Wi-Fi is good.
Yeah, because one of our values is adventurous. So for us, it's really important we have people that are, that want to push the boundaries and want to go out there and be passionate and find.
That's where you can learn creatively.
Yeah.
Do you try and bring people together for real life connections? Yeah. Is there any routine for that process, or
we've got a meetup we're doing our Christmas do in Bristol this.
Out.
Yeah, we call it out. We're going
out.
We're going out. But we've chosen Bristol this time because we're conscious that the West Country lot are coming to London, and I think it's.
That's nice. You can move the locations around and bring people together. Yeah. And can everyone come to those things?
Yeah, we try and. So this one we've done in the middle of the day. So that means if you've got childcare commitments, you should be able to get back, and so the majority, almost the whole team's coming. Yeah. So it's.
But we have a weekly meeting, which isn't. All physically together, but it's a face-to-face meeting virtually, which is the one meeting week where we say we want everyone to show their faces because you have a big range of people and actually sometimes from a flexible working point of view you have to really watch it from a mental health perspective. It's quite easy to become isolated or you don't talk to another human being in the day. And we do have some introverts in the team who actually, to begin with, it was really tough just to put their video screen on. But now it's become really good, hasn't it? But it is our weekly meeting where we all get together, we have a bit of a laugh, we share whatever's going on, what our view is, what people have been doing in their lives, and just make sure we get together and keep talking that way.
Yeah, it's funny because I know over the years I've interviewed people who've said that they were feeling lonely and wanted to who were freelance and wanted to come back into being part of a team, and that's definitely not an unusual thing to happen.
No.
I suppose that if you had a hub like Bristol and you had a few people there that if they wanted to come together, you eventually, I guess there's nothing bad about them having a way to meet up. With the agency that I mentioned to you, what I wrote in the book about Up There Everywhere, I know the other day I went to White City and I walked in the office to go and see another agency, and there was a sign outside the door that said Up There Everywhere, and I was like, well, you've got an office here, and actually had one person working out of that co-working space, and he put the sign up. But I thought this was quite good for this branding, and I think there are a few people then go and meet there who are in London. Would you consider doing things like that? Or do you,
we've got that. Yeah, we've got that
okay.
in that same building actually.
Have you?
Yeah,
we've got that
building.
Yeah. It's nice, that building.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Good.
So that's where we hire our meetings. But it's only 10 days that I have but one space for 10 days a month, and it is. Actually, I think it did come down to mental health because I was living on my own and we were setting up an agency and we were working really, really hard. And some days Phoebe would call me and she'd be like, have you spoken to another person today? And I'd be like, no. She'd be like, leave the house. Get out. Poor person in Sainsbury's local kind of got an earful. But it's nice to have somewhere to go, and it's also nice for us from healthcare because we're surrounded by startups and, everyone in there is digital and everyone's really creative and we're learning so much. You can go to all the events and learn from other people. And I think we have this dream that in healthcare communications, one day we won't have to come outside the industry to learn as much as we do now. So our dream is to push it, to start doing events. But right now, healthcare and pharma is quite behind. And, we've got the ABPI, we have to come under these laws. Everything we do is to be compliant, and I think being in an environment like that is really good. It keeps us fresh, it keeps us young. Skin and Blister is like hopefully a fresher agency in our industry, and also the fact that we're women owned. I think you get kind of empathy there and femininity, and
some of our clients just love it when their mums and their kids are in the background off sick watching Peppa Pig, and they're like, this is amazing, I don't need to kind of hide this.
Because you think a male might be more disapproving or something.
I don't know if it's necessarily a man thing. I think it's just a farmer thing, and it's having to be professional and always being perfect, and nobody's perfect and things happen, and and we're always, because we're so open with our clients, they can be open with us, and we just had so much positive feedback on the back of that.
I think that's very special. I mean, I think I've talked a lot recently about the client relationship, and it's one thing to have a good working relationship, and in terms of the work you do and the execution, but actually the experience they have working with their agency is just as important. And that doesn't necessarily mean all partying and schmoozing, but just having a relationship where there's empathy, where there's you can almost be like work friends and be open and honest. In fact, the best briefs without question go into agencies where they trust those agencies more, and so if they like you and they trust you, you'll probably get more great work. The thing I really wanted to talk to you about as well today, actually, one of the things that you've done, and actually you might not think it's that unusual, but if I took 1,000 agencies now, you would still be in probably a very small selection of those agencies that has niched from day one. Like, you are just focusing on, do you call it pharma and healthcare, or just healthcare? Just healthcare.
Yeah.
So you focus on healthcare. And, some people would spend the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years trying to figure out where will that focus be. And often they need to find one big client. Like I did, I had to find one big client in sport before I really narrowed down. But because of your history and your heritage, and obviously with your parents being in that being doctors, it's a great story and consistent. And do you think? But I'm never always sure if it does give you, let's say, a competitive edge having a niche, but you've got to 13 people in 3 years, and I only got to about 8 people in 3 years, I think it was. So you're definitely outperforming me. So maybe the niche is a better thing. So I guess the question to you is how have you found the niche? Do you think it has been 100% positive, or do you think at times it is slightly difficult because you have to turn away work maybe from other people? Or
I think we've made life really difficult for ourselves. We've set up with this mission and these values, and we won't work with clients that don't. We're looking for clients that believe what we believe. We don't want clients that just want to churn it out, hit the deadline. Clients that believe in their brands, clients that can see the value of these. Some of the drugs we work on are life-saving, completely change the lives of the people. And for us, we're like, why would we want to sell chocolate bars or sports shoes?
Yeah. And I think it's also the regulations, like Katie said earlier. And what I love is Katie's approach creatively is there are so many rules in healthcare, and actually sometimes when I've spoken to other people in creative industries that aren't involved in healthcare, they're like, oh, it must be so boring. And actually we love it because when you can break it. When you know how to, that's the Katie who says it, when you know what the rules are, you know how to bend them.
The rebel.
And she does. And it's fantastic, and the whole team do. But our whole team has that healthcare. Well, the creative side have a really strong healthcare background. It's really important because we don't want to break the rules. It's like a massive responsibility to communicate well to people who are either going through, sometimes awful, traumatic situations in their lives, and or caring for somebody that is, having to make some awful decisions. And you want to be able to support that sensitively and be responsible. So I think we take it as a personal duty to do it well and do it properly, because that's what everybody deserves. But we also work in animal health, so that's different because for us it's working with farmers, so it's completely different world.
Dog owners.
Do you? So you do human health and animal health.
And then we also do clinical research as well, so that's for ordinary everyday people can go on clinical research.
So interesting, you have a niche but then actually have some kind of periphery
divisions,
areas. That's quite smart. So
it's all based on healthcare, and it's all based on evidence. So it's proper scientific studies. It's not your fake news. And the other one that's a bit of an outlier is social media. So in pharma and in healthcare, most of our clients are very scared of social media. As soon as you put anything up about a product, people can talk about an adverse event, they've got a side effect. So we've brought in a team that aren't from healthcare to really push us and to really help us develop that side. And, I think what we feel is, there's a real social responsibility. If you're in healthcare and you have a product and there's information on the internet that's not right about it, or people are giving their own opinions, then actually, isn't it the social responsibility that there is the right information out there, and it is, really based on the science and all evidence based? And I think that's kind of what we strive for, and for us we find it massively exciting. And
although it's a niche,
it's a
massive niche.
We love it.
I can see why clients would want to work with you.
Thank you.
You're passionate, you care about the product, you're excited by it, and I think if you're a client and you see that, of course you want to work with people who are excited about what you're doing. And are they like that? Is that right? Do they like working with people like that, or are they quite corporate? Are they just quite, listen, we just need the job done?
Well, those people we don't work with, so we'll say no.
Okay.
We learn early on, we will very quickly know who our perfect client is and who Skin+Blister will be perfect for.
Did you sit down and go, what is our perfect client?
Just became clear.
We have done some work, haven't we, of kind of identifying. But Fee's great at asking questions. The Jenny Plant approach. We've learned a lot from Jenny Plant.
She's my Yoda.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's about asking the right questions and knowing what their challenges are and the solutions, but then it's also asking things like, how quickly do you want this? And if they want it like tomorrow, that's not for us, because we will take the time to really research the audience, really look at the data, take the idea and get the complex information and make it really meaningful. So that takes a bit of time to do it properly. And we've had a few client conversations where they're just like, I just want this done, but there's no why behind it. They just want the what, and I just want to get it out. So tick off my box. That's not for us. So we will say no in those situations.
Have you ever said no to a piece of work for ethical reasons yet, or is that not?
I've definitely questioned my ethics, not at Skin+Blister, but in the past. It's. I think we've been lucky at Skin+Blister. We've worked on all of our products are really great actually at the moment.
But that's quite important to you, right?
Yeah.
It would have to be the right product, right?
Yeah.
I sense that.
Yeah.
Like some people I speak to, they don't really care. They're about making money.
Yeah.
Some people kind of, and also it's weird because some people, like I was asked this question for the first time, probably when I was, about 20 people, and there's a guy called Justin Cook who's quite famous in our industry in a way, sort of built a great agency called Fortune Cookies. He's vice chair for UNICEF now. And I was at dinner the first time I met him, and he said, he asked me a great question, Jenny Plant thing. He said, he said, who would you not work with? And I'd never thought about that before. And it's funny because it really hit me. And I sort of went back to the office next day and I went, well, who wouldn't I work with?
Yeah.
And actually, it became apparent weirdly, like the serendipity of these things, fatalistic, that in the next quarter, 3 people came through who were very questionable, and I think it's important to have that. And also, in some cases, actually, some of my team would have worked on those brands, and some wouldn't. And actually, where I didn't really have an opinion, I just said, well, if you want to work on it, you can, and you don't have to. But you haven't really had anything like that yet anyway. But
no, we definitely have kind of target disease areas that we want to work on.
Yeah.
And also, some of the things that are coming through in medicine are so exciting, immunotherapies, especially, I mentioned earlier our dad being unwell, kind of watching him and, looking at all these amazing options that just didn't exist 3 years ago. It's like what's happening in cancer medicine is really advancing really fast, and that's what excites us as well, because we want to be there at the cutting edge, and
gene therapy
and
as well,
therapy
which could potentially cure people of certain conditions, which is amazing, but also scary. And you can't. It's not for everyone, for sure. But again, it's about finding that right person you can change their life. And I think just going back to the client thing, what we've really realised is that when you've got the right fit, you don't even need to sell it. It's almost like it's a bit like matchmaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of, when you find your perfect person, you just get into a conversation and you don't even have to pitch.
Yeah.
So that's what, if there's a bit of advice, I would say stay true to yourself and your values and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that really helps your sector focused alongside that, because I think you're making it very difficult for someone not to work with you, because you are the best, probably the number one expert in the area that you're in.
Yeah.
If you niche it down and niche it again, and there's a market there, then that's fantastic. So you've obviously learned lots of lessons along the way with your flexible working, with your agile approach.
Yeah.
What advice? So if someone was listening who, I don't know, maybe they're a bigger agency and they're thinking, actually, maybe we could expand and maybe build on what we have by bringing a more agile approach to the future growth, or they maybe someone smaller and they're looking to start up, and what less, is there any sort of golden rules advice?
I think my number one is I think you have to sit down as a leader and you have to decide, how do you want to run your business and how do you want your life to be? And with me and Feed, there were obvious constraints that have kind of pushed us into this direction, but I really feel that a good leader needs to live that way as well. It's not if you have a boss that kind of says, you must be on your desk Monday to Thursday, but Friday you can work from home. But I think there's too much restriction and the whole team aren't getting into it. I think that's where problems will come. Whereas for us, we decided how we wanted to run our business, and then we found people that also want to work in that way. And I think that's really helped with the trust and the way of working, and just, our team are amazing. They just drop things. They'll be there for us that, without even asking almost.
Yeah.
But I think it has to come from the top, and it has to come, and every single person in that organisation has to have the same. So it's not like there's one person on reception Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, because that's like, how does that person end up feeling? So I'm quite diplomatic and I try and be fair, but I really think that's the only way. And I don't know, kind of just saying 1 day a week, for me, that's not flexible working.
And actually, on that question, is there an inefficiency then, for example, by not having, somebody who is, an executive assistant or something, maybe shielding from, because a lot of agencies suffer from constant interruptions. They have to deal with the client directly. Sometimes it's, they need just time to do work, and it's like, so how does that happen? Because I guess
we have a great phone system.
All right. There's another bit of technology we can talk about.
We have a great phone system called Wave, and basically it bounces around our phones, whoever's got the app open, until someone picks it up.
Right.
So we don't miss client calls.
We all kind of cover each other.
Yeah, we basically had to find
you still could have a virtual assistant if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're too small to that, but you're getting to the point where you'll probably have that at one point.
Yeah, going to have to get
because
that soon.
it does, because it's one of those things actually, when you finally recruit that role, you realise how important it actually is and the value that it can bring to
Absolutely.
you. So are the people that work for you still salaried?
No, they're mostly freelance.
Mostly or all freelance?
Apart from us.
Yeah, we're the only employees.
So
at
would you employ them? I'm just thinking as a this agile model.
Yeah.
Could they could still be employed or not?
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
We talk
does it?
in hours, we don't talk in days. So we
Right.
talk about the number of hours per week that we sort of say we'd like you 20 hours a week. We don't mind when you work those hours.
Yeah.
And then if we need more, we'll ask you and, work that way. I think we're really conscious we have an amazing team and we do regular happiness surveys with them, don't we? But it's constantly asking them, what do you want? And, we are getting to the point of saying to them, look, we'd love to employ people and we'd like to ask you
But
what
I guess
you would
when
be
it gets
looking
to
for.
40 hours, for example, or 37 and a half, would you then go, well, look, we're paying you
Exactly,
that?
yeah.
Is it not? Would you have a problem with that? Because it's still flexible, right? It's
Yeah.
still that, but they work exclusively for you. They can still work those hours whenever they want, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and that's it. Would that conflict with your values and your approach?
No, I don't think so. I think where the problem comes more is on the creative side because one of Sarah in our social team, she also runs a wedding event company, for example. So I think finding creatives is probably harder than the account side. I definitely think it's something we're looking at next year, but we just there is no such thing as full-time even now or part-time.
Yeah.
So we're kind of writing the rules a bit.
Yeah.
So that's something, it's definitely on our radar.
Everyone loves to work in this way as well, and one of our values is entrepreneurial.
I was just
so
thinking about more security from the individual's perspective. I mean, I thinking that and I'm not saying that everyone's like this, but there might be some people who might value the security of going, actually, at least I'm going to get paid. And I love. By the way, there was an agency. I'm going to get her to come and speak here. She's managing partner of an agency, and she does the 4-day week, which I've had a few issues with the 4-day week, if I'm honest. But actually, I sort of bantered with her. Let's say this kind of argument, all my objections and because I'd rather have 100% flexibility than have people. Because have to work longer days, Monday to Thursday, just have a Friday off and they're burnt out.
Yeah.
But actually, I won't ruin the next vodcast when I talk about it, but it was superb, and actually the way they do it and why they do it is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I was completely changed my perspective on it. But and I've never thought about this until now, by the way, especially. But I just think that you're so tailoring what you do around individuals, whether they have other wedding businesses or they are larks or owls. If someone did work 37 and they wanted it, it would make sense to do that. It doesn't in any way. I mean, it just gives them that security.
Absolutely.
And I guess the topic that we were talking about recently, which is what happens with IR35, and maybe if someone is only working for you, do the government then deem that person to technically be an employee, and really you should be paying the taxes? And weirdly on that subject, actually, I think you would do that though. You would pay the sticking.
Yeah.
You haven't got a problem doing that, do
not
you?
At all, no.
So, which I told someone the other day, and they were like, "That's amazing that actually someone would have an agile workforce and then not want them to lose out in any way because they were working with you or whatever." But I think the laws do need changing, right? Because
the world is changing, isn't it? The way people want to work is changing, and with millennials, I hate using that word, but it's been shown that people won't just have one career, and they are really entrepreneurial and want to try loads of different things. And actually that adds so much as an employer. If you've got people that have loads of different ideas and are work creatively in other areas, that's amazing. It can only be a positive for your business.
I think so.
Actually, I don't like the label either, but I've got to say I love Gen Zs. The new ones are amazing. Honestly, as a Gen X, they are really good. They've got great work ethics. They all work really, really hard and smart. They don't want to go to uni because they can learn online, but they'd rather have free Wi-Fi than clean toilets, which I'm not so sure about that one. But it's interesting how the work, let's forget the labels, it's interesting how the work dynamics do change over the years. And, you know, if you look back to the way my parents were baby boomers, I think they were. But, you know, you go through those different areas, it is different. But I think this next lot are very interesting. I mean, I've seen 4 or 5 now, which I've been slightly the complete opposite of that generation before. So it will be interesting. So the next challenge will be, how do you deal with the next workforce that doesn't want to have, you know, wants to work hard. I don't know. Maybe that's if that is a stereotypical thing that happens. But do you find any restrictions at the moment around the way that you are having, that people have to invoice you, I guess, everything? Is that a lot of administration to do?
It was, and so we took on Will, our head of numbers, didn't we, to help with all of that, because it was just getting to the point it was taking too much time for me. And I think that's one thing I learned from your book as well, is knowing what's right for you to invest your time in, and then also knowing who to bring in at the right point, who's the right expert to do the other stuff that they're really good at, and then you can focus on the business a bit more. So
I think that sounds like a smart hire.
So, he's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
And I guess because there's also an issue around sort of paying, because when you have a salaried workforce, you have to pay the wages at the end of every month. And I guess in your case, you've got invoices coming in, and I guess do you have like payment terms, or do they have to get paid straight away? Because I bet you probably want to look after these guys, because they're your key workforce. And then your clients, do they? It's the whole cash flow thing. Is it worse or better with your model? I don't know. Is it because do you get more time to pay people?
With our team, we ask them to invoice us at the end of each month if it suits them, and then we'll pay them within 30 days.
Right, so maybe it's a bit better then, really.
So because we were both freelance, we know how it feels not to get paid. So for us, it's been really important to make sure we look after everybody. From our client perspective, again, you know, that big farm we mentioned that kind of launched us, they were amazing. So their 90-day payment terms, they reduced to 30 days for us. And again, it was just about having those conversations. I think the longest we're on is 45 days for any of our clients, so which is still a stretch sometimes, but you know, you can make it work. But yeah, cash flow is always a challenge, isn't it?
But it's nice that I like the fact that organisation sat down with you and talked about it. For me, that's really, really, you know, nice to hear that companies will do that. And I think the most important thing is that you know what the payment terms are, I guess. If you know what they are, you can work around it. It's when you don't know and people are taking it, So you are 13. And I did talk about where you're going to go next. Do you have like a sort of, in the next year, is it more clients? Is it just...
We need to get our non-20% ratios sorted next year. So we've been really lucky because the clients we've had have been amazing. We've got organic growth within those companies, but we really need to get more clients now in terms of other businesses to be able to
imagine you're very good at farming your clients because of your background and obviously asking them for referrals to other people.
So we are trying to do more of that, aren't we? And also try to work with more people. So for instance, We Connect this week was brilliant in terms of networking, and a bit like you were saying, I mean, a lot of the tips from your books in terms of really getting yourself out there, but also standing up and being counted. And this week I did take that on board, and I stood up for the first time and was quite petrified. But it was amazing because it was the first time people had kind of come to us and said, I'm really interested in finding out about you. And they're people we'd never spoken to before. And I think that's always a challenge in our industry. It's very much procurement led, but because pharma's so locked down and confidential, you often can't get names. So you ring up and they won't put you through to anyone. So it's about making those connections. That's been a challenge for us, hasn't it? And I think that's what we're trying to do more of next year as well, is just kind of find more Skin and Blister clients. And you know, we just love to work.
We love working.
We hate it.
It's funny because Tamara said to me as well that she came to a dinner that I was at with the supper club, and I'd said, you've got to get it before the book, and so she said, you're the reason I had to get out there and do this as well. So I feel really guilty now.
No, it's good though.
It's really good.
Does. It really makes
but
you
sometimes
think.
I feel quite guilty. I did talk about this a little bit earlier, so I won't cover it too much there. But I think sometimes I feel a bit guilty that not everyone is like me, and it's easy for me to throw away comments like, you know, you need to go and meet 50 new people each month. And actually, you know, the when people freak out when I say that, but actually when you really start to look at that and break it down, it's not actually as stressful as hard as you think. It's just when you spoke at that event, how many people came up to you afterwards?
About 5-10 people.
5-10 people. I mean, so you've only got to do, a speaking event a week or something once a week, and really you'd probably hit those numbers. So it's not as bad, and there are ways to optimize what you do. But how do you do marketing in your business for new business? What do you?
It's two-part, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So we do for instance, we're trying to go to more events. So, for instance, last Friday, I went to an event at the House of Commons, which you had to be invited to, and it was actually for 80 women game changers. And it was so amazing to see these 80 incredible women, but imposter syndrome was huge. And it's ridiculous. In walking out, I mean, the building, as you know, you've been there, but when you go up to the House of Parliament, it's like, wow. And do I deserve to be here? And these women that I met were amazing game changers. They're working in finance and healthcare around the world, trying to make the world a better place, basically. Wow. But just through meeting a lot of them, that's like 80 new people, or 79 new people that we haven't met before. So I think we're trying to do a lot of that, aren't we? And trying to connect, meet more people, and just trying to stand up a bit more and speak a bit more. So that's one aspect, isn't it?
And then online, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
really, we're throwing a lot at LinkedIn. That said, we still haven't really got our heads around it, but it took us a long time to realise that, we couldn't find any of our clients on Twitter, and, I love Twitter. I've been on it for years, and my personal account, I love it. But for Skin and Blister, it just, we couldn't crack it, and eventually we kind of rolled over and realised that, LinkedIn is the only place where we know our clients are. You can see who looks at your articles, your posts, and really it's kind of, I think I went to see you talk actually, and you talked about a book called Key Person of Influence.
Yeah, Daniel Priestley.
And I think it's really pushed both of us to try and become a bit more well known in our industry. I think imposter syndrome has been quite big for us, and kind of having that confidence. And but I think with LinkedIn, we're starting to see results. We've had a pitch from LinkedIn, had an RFI that's come through from being on LinkedIn, and then also the conference we went to this week. So we're slowly seeing the kind of the return on investment, and just being able to write articles, become a bit of a thought leader. Fee and I are both massively passionate, as you can see, and it's kind of I feel like it's part of our legacy to talk about it. And also, I think a lot of people, particularly in the pharma side of what we do, big pharma's got really bad press at the moment, and actually most of our clients just absolutely care so much about the products they're working on, and it all comes from a real place of genuine place. And then they just get slated in the press, they get slated in the US, all the thing about money. And so I think kind of part of our legacy as well is to point out that these drugs are amazing, they do save lives, and it's important that people understand how healthcare works. And I think I've often joked that it's the only industry you can go to. You go to a house party, you tell someone you work in IT, they go yeah. You tell someone you work in healthcare, in our industry, what we do, and they can literally tear you apart for an hour. And the problem is that the way everyone thinks about health is very much, it's related to an emotion, it's related to an experience you've had in your family, and it's very emotional, and it's very but the way that it actually works, the way that you bring a drug through clinical trials and get it approved, all of that, people don't really understand that, and it's like that's 10, 11 years, to do that, to do the process. And that's why we love working in clinical trials as well, to be able to recruit those patients early on and really see what's coming through. And so, I think for me, that's part of our legacy as well. And it's so inbuilt in us. And our poor parents just, get quizzed all the time. Like, Mum, Dad, every Sunday roast. But it comes through the family as very much part of us. But LinkedIn is the one.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think in a way LinkedIn is the same really as I guess your networking, your speaking. It's just online, and I've definitely noticed a real shift again, because I'm one of these really weird people who only connect to people on LinkedIn that I've met in real life, or at least I've spoken to them and had a really good conversation, and I plan to meet them at some point. And so my LinkedIn's quite closed down, and I think most people are quite surprised about it. But it's actually fantastic because when people want to get hold of me, they have to be quite tenacious, and it's good because it's almost a gamifying it. And then when they do get hold of me, they're like I got hold of you. It's like wow, and I'm like, yeah, well done, you passed the test. But I did see last night. Do you know Kelly Molson?
Yeah.
So she did a great post. She said, "Oh, I've realised I don't know many of my LinkedIn contacts."
I saw that. Yeah.
And actually, I've seen 2 or 3 in the last month where people are starting to say this now. And James Potter, who you probably was at that event, were you at the event with James Potter, the LinkedIn guy? There's a LinkedIn guy called James Potter who's superb.
No, I have not.
And he did this big thing. But anyway, it made me realise that actually, every time someone invites you, you should really use that opportunity to connect to someone and meet someone, and rather than just accept it, because there's not always. I mean, yes, there's some value in these strategies of collecting lots of followers, but and if you want to play a big numbers game, you can. But I do love I do love LinkedIn. I think it's a great tool, but you still have to have a human side to it. I think you still have to try and get to understand people's businesses, and they understand your business, and if you can have that, then it's magical. And I love that you're getting business from it, because on that new business survey, as you saw, it was in the top 12 ways that agencies were winning business. And so
I think it's important not to worry too much about numbers. This is what we've learned. So it's about, you can have just one person like it and engage with it. Yeah. And if they're the right person and what you've said is relevant to them, if that's your ideal client, that's it. That's 100% success.
Yeah.
So don't worry too much about numbers.
And I think the engagement, like commenting and starting conversation, to just like it and go in and say something. I think, I know Gary Vaynerchuk has got this kind of love-hate. He laughed, it's like he's Marmite, isn't he? He totally is. And there's some of the stuff I find quite annoying myself, but just around entrepreneur stuff. But actually, a lot of the stuff he does say is really, really, really right in many ways. And the whole thing he's always said about writing about the process. And I think on LinkedIn, obviously you have to be careful what you write around far. But saying, today we met something and we're really excited to be doing this, and explaining what you're doing. But I had the same thing with Twitter. No business from Twitter.
It's hard to find people. It's hard to even find people's accounts.
I'll give you one tip though from the new business report.
Go on then.
You know how when someone goes on LinkedIn and they say, "Do you know an agency that can do X?" and everyone jumps in. Well, one of the people said I think it was a guy did it. What they did was they went onto Twitter and they found the person's Twitter account and said, "Yes, we do this," and he won the work. They won the work, and it was like, so I thought, use that as a back door, but everybody else is over here. So maybe there's a strategy around that. So it's been great speaking to you both.
Thank you.
We've been talking for over an hour. Can't believe it. Time has flown.
Thanks for having us.
It's been great hearing your story,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully you're going to inspire, this next generation of businesses. I think, who want to understand more about how, an agile workforce could help them scale up. And I'm sure that if you guys reached out and someone wants to ask you any questions, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yes, definitely.
And I wish you all the success for the business.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thanks for joining us. So thank you, everyone. I hope you found that episode of great interest. I've got lots of takeaways from it, especially loving that LinkedIn is becoming a really good source of lead generation. I also really like the in particular the whole area of, with a flexible workforce, of being able to, or even if you have flexible working, be able to tailor that around people's start times and finish times, whether they're larks or owls, working around their optimum times to work. I find that area so fascinating. So thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to another episode soon. Thank you.